Hey, before we get started, a couple updates kind of from the channel. First of all, again, I've said this before, but I am shocked, I am awed, I am humbled by the response I've been getting. You know, I've just passed about 3,200 subscribers to my channel, and it just blows me away. I'm loving all of the feedback that I'm getting from the videos. I thank everybody for taking time out of their day to watch me babble on. One of the knock comments I've received is, this guy takes forever to get to the point and too much talking. Anyway, it is what it is. That's how I am. I geek out on these albums. I enjoy talking about them. And thank you all for watching. Thank you for subscribing. It means a lot. The other little quick update, I'm trying out a new lavalier mic. My house, first of all, we're talking about 90, 95, 100 degree weather so far into this summer. And I've got central air on. And this room has got a vent basically right above the camera that I'm using, so that probably has a little bit of sound impact. So I wanted to try a new lavalier mic. If people hear a difference, or good or bad, any feedback would be appreciated. Anyway, let's move on with today's episode featuring Allen Zentz Mastering. We're talking about Allen Zentz, the man himself. 4 albums mastered by him, and then one of his associates that worked for him at the time, Brian, the bassman Gardner. I've got an incredible album to talk about that he mastered under the Allen Zentz Mastering umbrella. Allen Zentz, he died in 1992 in New Mexico, and prior to him retiring and passing away, this guy was known, along with Doug Sax, Kent Duncan, also of Ken Dunn Recorders, Doug Sax, of course, with the Mastering Lab. He was right in there amongst the pack as one of these boutique go-to mastering engineers in the recording business in the 1970s. Allen Zentz is a little bit of a mystery. I cannot find any photographs of Allen Zentz on the internet, and I kind of pride myself in my searching abilities. If anybody can find a photograph of Allen Zentz online or offline, my email is in my about area for my channel. I would love to get a photograph of Allen Zentz. And if I do get that said photo, I'll go ahead and edit the video and drop in that photo or photos. But as of right now, I can't find any photos of Allen Zentz. It's a little bit frustrating. What we do have, though, is a tremendous body of work. And Allen Zentz also famously had 2 proteges working for him. One was Brian Gardner. Brian Gardner got his start at RCA as well, mastered things in the late 1960s, worked side by side with Allen Zentz, and eventually joined him at Allen Zentz Mastering. He then moved on to Bernie Grundman's mastering facility before branching out. I think since 2015, Brian has been independent. Brian is famously known as the bassman for his heavy and full soundstage. The other guy that worked alongside Allen Zentz and Brian Gardner was Chris Bellman. So everybody has heard of Chris Bellman lately, I would think. Chris Bellman is doing a ton of work. Chris Bellman works with Bernie Grundman at Bernie Grundman's Mastering House now. but Bellman has been responsible for a tremendous amount of rock and jazz reissue audiophile titles over the last several years, including last year's Tom Petty Wildflowers box set. So Bellman did all of that work. The first album I wanted to feature today that was mastered by Allen Zentz is an album that came out in January 1969 from a Bay Area based band. It featured brothers and a couple other guys. I'm talking about Creedence Clearwater Revival, and this is Bayou Country. This is the first of 3 albums that this band released in the calendar year that was 1969. And Bayou Country, think about it, you've got a swampy feel to this album. The big important song on this album, of course, is Proud Mary. Fogerty supposedly wrote this in his apartment one night and worked it out at the Avalon Ballroom in San Francisco. And there's not much you can say about that or this album. Let's talk about the sound on it. So this features a very, very full sound stage, a very raw and live sound. In some cases, when John Fogerty's electric guitar is at full volume, we're touching the heights of almost a little bit of distortion in a good way. This thing sounds freaking amazing, and it is on that royal blue. It's on that royal blue fantasy label, and it's a heavy record. I would say this is about 140 gram vinyl. My copy is just full of shine and gloss. It's near mint. I just love that label, full radial stereo on the bottom. And there is one more song I want to mention, and that is the last song on side 1, Keep Chugland. This song is a powerhouse. I think it's 7 minutes long at least. It starts with a Motown backbeat with some acoustic guitar coming in, and then John Fogerty, just goes to town with some incredible guitar play. And this is an iconic album. If you don't have this in some format, you are crazy. You need to find this. Of course, the trick is finding these older albums like this example, finding it in good condition, decent condition. The album that I have is basically near mint, at least VG++, graded conservatively. But for these older albums to shine, you have to find hopefully something that's in good condition. Put it through its paces, see how it sounds, get it ultrasonically cleaned, and you will be very, very happy. That is the first album I'm going to feature today, mastered by the great Allen Zentz. In 1976, David Bowie released his 10th album, and that was Station to Station. We need to look at the makeup of this album, how it came to be. It is, of course, a standout top 3, 4, 5 album, depending on who you talk to and what your own personal opinion is. It's in my top 3 David Bowie albums. Station to Station, recorded from September to December 1975. So in 1975, David Bowie had just finished filming on The Man Who Fell to Earth. And filming took place in Los Angeles and New Mexico. Knowing that he got this part, Bowie moved to Los Angeles well in advance of filming and quickly fell in with Iggy Pop, other characters. David Bowie developed a serious cocaine habit in 1975. We're talking serious. And in interviews, Bowie has mentioned that 3-month recording period for Station to Station, he has a real hard time recalling anything of note. That's how kind of drug-fueled and spaced out and drawn out this process was. Now, Bowie's got an all-star cast with him. Some of these players he worked with on several albums during that period. Talking about Carlos Alomar on guitar, Earl Slick on guitar, the great George Murray on bass guitar. And for this album, he actually recruited Roy Bittan of the E Street Band on piano and keyboards. The album was recorded at Cherokee Studios in Los Angeles, and Earl Slick, in an interview, said, this was not the first time he worked with Bowie, of course, and he kind of knew what he was going into when he got the call from David. And when Bowie was finished with the filming of The Man Who Fell to Earth, he rented a house on Stone Canyon Road in LA, and this became the scene of all-night partying and sessions, sleeping during the day, paranoia settling in. And Earl Slick famously said about the recording process of Station to Station, it was like entering the void. And what resulted is an all-time classic album. I'm only going to talk about 3 songs on this album. I could go on and on and on about Station to Station. But I want to first talk about TVC-15. According to legend, TVC-15, Bowie, a late night session in that house in LA with Iggy Pop. Iggy Pop had some kind of a weird dream, thinking that the TV was going to attack and swallow his girlfriend. Somehow Bowie strung together lyrics and a song idea from that nightmarish vision, and we get TVC-15, an absolute classic with Roy Bittan's piano kind of driving the beginning of that tune. The second song on side 2 is Stay, and it features a stinging, nasty guitar lick by Earl Slick. And there is a serious funk factor on that song. It is an absolute gem. It sounds amazing on this pressing. The last song on side 1, Word on a Wing. Really emotional song. Bowie has described it as, kind of coming out of this drug-fueled period with thoughts of God and religion and trying to find a way out of kind of the downward spiral that he was in during this time period. And this song has an incredibly beautiful guitar piece by Earl Slick. And it just is probably one of the more moving, emotional Bowie songs, in my opinion. If you haven't heard it lately, give it a whirl. And that's That's all I have to say about this album. Station to Station, The Thin White Duke, mastered by Allen Zentz. Before heading into the Village Recorders in West LA to record to start recording their third album, Donald Fagen and Walter Becker told the other members of the band at that point in time that they were going to be using studio musicians, and Becker and Fagen, they revered studio musicians, right? Anyway, they told the band that for the third album and the songs that they had worked up, they were going to be bringing in studio musicians to help flesh out and perfect the sounds on what would become Pretzel Logic. Pretzel Logic is a stone cold classic. There is the band. Probably a bittersweet photo for a couple of these gentlemen, because this was the last time that this would be kind of a band unit for Steely Dan. Steely Dan, for all intensive purposes, even from day one, was always Donald and Walter. And with the recording of this album and moving forward, Donald and Walter were calling all the shots. They were deciding who was going to be playing what part on what song. In some cases, Walter Becker wouldn't appear on any songs. Or let me think about that. In some cases, Walter Becker would only appear on maybe one song on an album as far as playing an instrument. Now, famously, the title cut on Pretzel Logic features a really tasty guitar solo and guitar work by none other than Walter Becker. Let's talk about Ricky Don't Lose That Number. First track on side one. What a song. Okay, so first of all, we've got that kind of spooky, I thought it was a marimba. It's actually a flapamba, which is in the marimba family. And it took me a while to find a photo of said instrument, but there you have it. Anyway, that's about a 25-second intro into this song. And famously, it was cut short on the ABC Records single that preceded the album for Ricky Don't Lose That Number. So it was cut short, and then I think on several CD reissues in the future, including Citizen, the box set, it's like truncated, and in some cases it's totally missing entirely. And if you want the best experience for Ricky Don't Lose That Number and this album as a whole, you want to find the Allen Zentz Mastered pressing. One of my favorite compatriots in the collective known as Steely Dan is Jeff "Skunk" Baxter. And on Ricky Don't Lose That Number, Baxter has a mind-blowing guitar solo and guitar work throughout the song. If you have not heard Ricky Don't Lose That Number lately, and even if you don't have a copy, you haven't found one yet, pull it up on Spotify and listen closely to the guitar work by Jeff Baxter, and it's all you will need to complete your day. Pretzel Logic was the first album to feature killer drummer Jeff Porcaro. He was hired to actually join the touring band, short-lived after this album for Steely Dan, and he contributed to several songs on this album, as well as Jim Gordon. Jim Gordon Great drummer, drummed with John Lennon, other folks. He appears on this as well. Jim Hodder, the original drummer, was pissed because he was basically shoved aside and sang backup on a couple songs on this album, and that was it for Jim Hodder. You're going to want to find this ABC Records Rainbow label, and that's got the catalog number ABCD-808, and you want to find the AZ, which is in the dead back, stands for Allen Zentz, on side B. In 1975, there was a band from New York with a pretty cool theatrical modus operandi. Of course, I'm talking about Kiss. And this is Dressed to Kill. This was produced by the guy who actually owned the label, Casablanca Records, Neil Bogart. The reason Neil Bogart produced this album is because Kiss were flat broke at the time. They couldn't afford an outside producer. So they made do with Neil and actually the guys in the band. And this is an original first press. The reason I know that is because it's got that very cool embossed Kiss logo around that suited and booted photo. Side 2's got that cool reverse. And let's see if we can pick up, yeah, we can pick up a little bit of that embossing there. Ooh, that's even better. Anyway, I recently found this in a used shop, reasonably priced. Really happy to add it to the collection, and was pleasantly surprised when I started researching this Allen Zentz episode that I've got the AZ and the dead wax for this album as well. And let's talk about a few songs. You know, before I get started talking about the songs, I like to talk, and some people have accused me of taking a while to get to the actual songs of the album or the title of the album. It's my channel, and I take my time, especially when you're trying to kind of properly relay the personal meaning of these albums, that what they mean to me and what the sound sounds like. So I'm not going to be wrong. So what impresses me with this album is the in-the-pocket propulsive drumming of Peter Criss. Peter Criss, in the early days, was a very adept drummer, and he just kind of moved these songs along, including the first track on side 1, Room Service, Paul Stanley's song. Paul Stanley has got some good guitar work, so does Ace, and it's a nice up-tempo start to this album. The third song on side 1 is Getaway, written by Ace Frehley, lead vocals Peter Criss. And that is an incredible sounding song. Allen Zentz, as far as what does this sound like, it's a very, very even sound stage. I've got decent separation of instruments, really good volume as far as this thing being mastered loud. No distortion, and just kind of, it's a crystal clear, nice pressing of this album. And Kiss, remember, were not known for being, or releasing audiophile quality sound albums. This is the best that you're going to find for this album, the Allen Zentz Mastered pressing. Back to another song, Rock Bottom. Okay, Rock Bottom, this thing's amazing. So Ace Frehley, this is that big two-part song. The first half is all acoustic, and it's all Ace. And Ace is playing intricate, beautiful acoustic guitar, and it's almost going to a place that we would call a little proggy, right? But after that, it kicks into overdrive, and just an amazing song. Paul Stanley on vocals, of course. It is a standout song on Dress to Kill. Back to Rock Bottom. I forgot to mention, speaking of bottom, Gene's bass line and just overall bass playing on that song is top. And the pressing has got plenty of bass in it, which is nice. So you've got a totally nice, full, complete sound on this album. We've got to mention a couple songs on side 2. First of all, the first song on side 2, Come On and Love Me, Paul Stanley. Paul Stanley handling lead guitar in the opening stanzas of that song. Again, Peter Criss shines on drums. And finally, the last song on side 2, Rock and Roll All Night. It's a Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons penned tune. It is a concert staple. It's an iconic vocal, that classic gravelly delivery by Gene. Incredible guitar by Ace Frehley. That about sums it up. Dress to Kill. This is a first pressing. It's the one that you want to try and find if you want a decent copy, sounding copy of this album. Mastered by the man, Allen Zentz. Not to mention one of the coolest record labels out there in the history of rock and roll. That's Casablanca. Of course, you've got the skyline of Casablanca, Morocco. You've got that deep blue, beautiful label, and that red neon script. The last album I want to feature today was mastered at Allen Zentz Mastering, but not by Allen Zentz. This one was mastered by Brian the Bassman Gardner, and it was released in 1980. There was a lead single called Crazy Little Thing Called Love that came out in the summer of 1979. I'm pretty sure it went up to #1 in the United States, if not the UK as well. And that is the Freddie Mercury penned kind of throwback to the Sun Records, Elvis period, 1950s rockabilly song. And it's an amazing song. Of course, it came off the 1980 album. Eventually, it was included in this album, The Game. And this is an incredibly fantastic sounding record. And you owe it to yourself to go out and find the Brian Gardner mastered copy of this record. And the Brian Gardner signature is kind of interesting. So he would actually draw, there would be an AZ for Allen Zentz Mastering. In this case, there was actually an Allen Zentz Mastering stamp. And then after that, Brian Gardner used a couple different notations to indicate it was him. One would be a flower or a couple stacked flowers, and another one would be a couple things that look like a couple seagulls or birds flying in flight. And in this pressing, this mastering, he uses the flower. I've got a photo that will show of that. But what an album by Queen. This was a little bit of a departure for the band. You know, they recorded this thing in Munich at the Musicland Studios, which was run by the famous George Moroder. George Moroder, father of the Moog synthesizer. Of course, he did all of the disco records with Donna Summer. Many of those were mastered by Brian Gardner as well. I'm not gonna delve into those today, but if you like Donna Summer, you like those albums, go look for the Brian Gardner mastered copies. They're the best out there. Anyway, back to Munich. So the band convened in Munich to work on this record. They had been talked into trying some new things. One of those, of course, is using a synthesizer for the first time on a Queen album. And it was on, the first time it showed up was on Play the Game. Freddie Mercury reportedly played the synthesizer. If you play the game, wait for about the 2-minute mark, and that synthesizer will come in. I don't know. I'm not sure if it dates all that well. Play the Game's an amazing song, but personally, not 100% sold on that synthesizer part in that particular song. Couple other things about this album. Back to Crazy Little Thing Called Love. The producer of the album talked Brian May into using a Telecaster for that incredible rockabilly guitar solo that he breaks out into. Brian May does not usually play a Fender Telecaster, but take a listen to that. And if you actually go look for the Crazy Little Thing Called Love at Live Aid, and Brian's playing a Telecaster during that solo piece, and then later on in the song he moves back to a different guitar. I wanted to break down this album a little bit. So the second song on side one is a Brian May song, Dragon Attack. And this features, this is an incredible groove, this song. John Deacon is laying down just an in-the-pocket great bass line. Roger Taylor is adding some really nice, tasty cymbal flourishes throughout that song. And of course, Brian has got some incredible guitar playing on the song as well. Also, I can't not talk about Another One Bites the Dust. Another One Bites the Dust is a John Deacon composition. It's a bass player's dream. And this mastering is kind of it's kind of like a dry mastering, especially on Another One Bites the Dust. It was recorded and mastered just arid dry. Just listen to it, and it sounds amazing. Okay, I'm not saying anything bad about the mastering, but it's got a unique sound. Later on in Dragon Attack, one of my favorite parts of this song, John Deacon gets his own bass solo, and you've got that going on, and in the background you've got Freddie kind of yelping, "All right!" That's my best Freddie impersonation for today. That is Queen, the Game, 1980, mastered by Allen Zentz Mastering. The engineer here is Brian Gardner. That's a wrap on the Allen Zentz Mastering Engineer Mastering House episode. It's number 9 in my series. Just a reminder, I do have a playlist that has all of these other videos that you can check out. I appreciate all the feedback, all the comments. I hope to see you guys soon. I'm going to be doing a little bit of a shout out thank you video to the vinyl community, kind of celebrating the fact that I've gone over 3,000 subscribers. There are a lot of people that I've watched over the years. There's a couple people that I reached out to personally who said, hey, you should give it a shot. It doesn't hurt. And I think I'm going on 6 months in the vinyl community. It's been a lot of fun. And again, I just want to say thanks for watching, everybody, and we will see you on the next video.